This is a video response to PadrePiper about, where we end up. Is where you are now where you want to be? And yeah, it's an interesting question. So I watched Derek Tant's video. I watched pipe smoking plumber's video. Saddle tramp piper. Yeah, it all kind of gets you thinking about that. And honestly, do we ever live up to our potential? If you were to ask your parents, Mom, Dad, have I lived up to your potential? If they were nice, they'd probably say yes. But honestly, they probably had greater expectations than you did. That's the case with me. So, in fact, I dropped out of college several times because I just had this idea in my head that whatever you got your degree in college was going to be what you did for the rest of your life, and I couldn't decide, I guess. By the way, I'm not smoking. My ear and all my little wounds are still healing up, so I'm going to honor my surgeon's request that I don't smoke until Tuesday when I see him and he takes out the stitches. So I'm going to honor that request. This is a Sayers pipe from Ireland. Really a nice little pipe. So I'm not going to smoke it, but I'm going to chew on it, and that'll just have to do. So in high school, I started working for the Colorado State Parks as a seasonal ranger. And actually that would probably have been a pretty good fit. I'm kind of like that. It kind of suited me pretty well. One thing that did not suit me was that full-time rangers had to go through the Colorado Law Enforcement Training Academy, just like any county sheriff did. They carried a gun. They were peace officers. And, I just, at that time, and still, I don't really want to be a cop. So I did it on a half-time basis. That's as much. We could work 6 months out of the year as a part-time ranger. So I did that. I taught skiing for a year at Breckenridge. What else did I do during my off times? Well, I usually was in school during the winter. And then I would go back to being a part-time ranger. So I did that for 5 or 6 years. And that was good fun. The worst job I ever had was just after I got out of college. I was desperate for a job, and so I signed up with Manpower, the temp agency, and I had a couple interesting gigs. I worked at a bagel bakery in Denver, Jewish Bagel Boys, or was it Denver Bagel Boys? I forget. Anyway, really Jewish, yeah, and I'm not. So there was a little mismatch there, but I had a lot of fun with it. Best bagels ever. I have never found better bagels. They did a great job. And Hamantaschen. If you've ever had Hamantaschen, they're great. Haman's hats. They're little pastries. So that was fun. But the worst job I ever had, I only lasted for about 2 weeks. In fact, it probably lasted a week. That was loading bales of insulation into pickup trucks that would then go out and the guys would insulate people's houses. So they'd need an order for 10 bales of this insulation and 5 bales of this and a bale of this and a bale of that. And so we, in this unheated warehouse in the middle of winter in Denver, at night, because the trucks had come back, and so this was for tomorrow's shift, we would load the insulation onto the trucks. Yeah. That needs to be a robotic job, which I'll get to later. But the guy who was there loved this job. It was the perfect job for him because he was his own boss during that 8-hour shift. He could finish it in 4 hours, loading all the trucks, because he just ran around and ran around, and then he could watch TV for the rest of the night. It was like, wow, that was just his dream job. And it was like, really? So I just didn't last there, and that was truly the worst job I ever had. I still don't have a TV. I don't own a TV. So I got into working for a web press that was in the heyday of small community newspapers. And I worked kind of a graveyard shift proofreading all of the galleys for 26 weekly newspapers in Denver. The comp room, composing room, was sort of a perk. I don't know if they actually paid for it, but it encouraged all those papers to have their stuff printed at this big print house. And so it was mostly the printing that they made the money on. But so, gosh, I would spend all night just reading all the local news throughout the city and the area. Yeah, that was actually a good job for me. I enjoyed that a lot. And then I had some property down in near Silverton, Colorado. I've got some mining claims down there. So I'd go down there, drop everything, put stuff into storage, go down there, live in a tent all summer long, and get a job down there if I needed to come about September. I was a baker for a while in a bakery. That was fun. Silverton was in the news recently because the American Tunnel blew out. They had stuffed openings in this low tunnel, relatively. It was at about 12,000 feet. But it drained miles and miles of upper tunneling in all these other mine complexes. And it was leaking out then, and I got a job maintaining the settlement pond. We would put lime into a feed system that filtered it into the water that was coming out of the tunnel, which went into a couple of ponds, and it was called flocculant, and the mineral, the bad stuff bound to that and settled, and then occasionally that was scooped out and hauled away, probably to a toxic waste site. I don't know where it went. So I did that for 1 year, one winter. That was pretty interesting. Whole different, kind of work, I'll tell you. And then, came real jobs and settling down. I worked for an architect in Seattle, and we did hospital and laboratory planning. And so I had gotten my degree in pre-architecture, basically, historic, with a minor in historic preservation and journalism. So what did I want to be? I kind of knew I didn't want to be an architect. I thought I did. But, gosh, I could just never tie the bow tie. And that's sort of an inside joke. But I was a good support person, but I wasn't really destined ever to be an architect, and I got that. But we sat down with clients and sketched out space for them, and I converted that into CAD drawings, and then we handed that off. We were a consultant usually to a big general contractor, and then handed that off to them. So I did that for 7, 8 years. It was fun. Got to travel around to different hospitals. It was good. It was good. Um, as that architect retired, his secretary was working at a little Indian tribe and nearby, and she said, there's this job, I don't even know what it is, but you'd be good at it. I said, yeah, right, thanks. Thanks, Robbie. But I applied for it, and so it's GIS, it's mapping. And so that's what I'm doing now, and what I've done for a long time. And Little Indian Tribe is such a great environment to work in. It's filled with people who are wonderfully talented, very skilled, very competent, but usually not very corporate. So, and very interested in the environment. It's just a fascinating environment to work in addition to the cultural stuff, which I get to participate in and so forth. As part of that, I run the town board, as it were. It isn't really a town, it's just part of the county, but it is a town. And so we have a special advisory committee to the county, and so the chairman of the tribe asked me if I'd be part of that to keep an eye on those people. And so I'm still doing that, and I'm now the head of it. I volunteer with my local fire department, have done that for quite some time. Go east of the mountains on state deployments, although this is kind of getting in the way of that this year. I have a great life. I could never really have imagined it, and yet it's very true to who I am and consistent with my values. And I just couldn't have foreseen it or planned it, but it has turned out really well. So I've never cared about money. You just have enough money, as much as you need. I've always been a saver, not want to. In elementary school, I would save part of my lunch money, and it would just add up. I've just always been like that. So money has never really been an issue for me. Handcuffed to a job. I do the work I do because I like it, not because I'm being paid, oodles of money or whatever. It just never has been part of my mix. So, yeah, I'm I'm really happy with what I'm doing. So, I would like to sail around the world also. So we'll see if that happens. So thank you, Padre, for raising the question.